Well, good morning, everyone. As a member of the Worship and Ministry Committee, and also someone who's been involved for, I guess, 20 years with Austin Cerca, I'm happy to present someone who's already been here, I think, a few months back, Juanita Rivera. And Juanita is what's their official title?
A program coordinator.
Program coordinator for Austin Cerca, Frontera, ATCF we call it. And she is going to just be talking around the recent delegation in October that we took to the border. So I'll just let Juanita go ahead.
Okay, so I'll just quickly get started and just talk a little bit about the delegation that we had on October 20th to the 22nd, and then we can just quickly move on to questions. This year was actually my second delegation going to, and I feel like there's always a lot to learn, but we did more or less a little bit of what we did last time. We visited workers' homes, learned about their working conditions, and this time what was precisely different is this delegation was primarily focused on VU workers. VU workers are workers from Maquiladora who were laid off without any warning. There was no compensation and nothing. And unfortunately now they're blacklisted, so a lot of them are having trouble looking for a job anywhere else and don't really have any other means of income or any other options. So we did get to see some ex-VU workers who, a lot of them started their own businesses. So that was what was cool about this delegation. And we got to see, can't exactly recall her name. I think her name was Azucena, and she opened up a burger shop. So it was cool to see that some VU workers are looking for other means of income that aren't necessarily traditional ways of the maquiladoras. And we also took part in the FMA project, which is the project which empowers women of the maquiladoras. It empowers them to stand up for themselves, to learn about their rights. And, you know, a lot of the times women in these workplaces are, the workers in general are abused, but I think specifically with women, there's a lot of, unfortunately, sexual abuse that goes on. So it's a lot of educating workers on, how to report something, how to know that they're being abused, because unfortunately a lot of these women don't even know that they're going through these circumstances. So there's a lot of empowering through that. And I don't know if you guys have any questions, but that was just really quickly. And yeah.
A quick question. You said you workers. I think that's what I heard you say. Are those people that were promoting organizing?
So the VU workers, yes, they work at a maquila, which is a foreign-owned sweatshop. So they're the workers that used to work at this maquiladora, but unfortunately they tried to unionize. Well, they actually did it successfully. They unionized and they voted in a union. However, the company that they were working under didn't give in to the demands that they were giving, and rather than giving them fair pay and better working conditions, they decided to just shut down the factory. So this shutting down came without a warning. These workers were laid off. There was no warning. They weren't compensated. So these are the workers that we got to visit this time around. Mm-hmm. Yeah, go for it.
I was actually along on the trip as the driver and the interpreter. Luckily I only had to drive because everybody knew Spanish pretty well. But so VU violated all kinds of Mexican labor laws and international agreements by doing this, by not compensating them. They also so there was actually, which is very unusual, there was actually a court decision in Mexico against VU saying that all of their equipment would be impounded and the proceeds would be sold off and used to compensate the workers. And one of the workers who was with us suspected there might be something fishy going on, so he camped out in his car by the plant, and sure enough, a bunch of trucks pulled up. So he pursued them all the way to the border and actually convinced the border guards to not let them through.
Wow.
So it was pretty dramatic.
That was on this trip?
On this, yeah. Anyway.
I am curious. It makes me curious. So the company is BU.
Factory.
So, for example, one way that we might be able to help is to embargo or things that are made by that particular company. Is that a way that we might help in this? I'm just curious on ways that we can help.
Well, don't buy any cars made in the U.S. then, because VU basically makes, as I understand it, is it things like stuff for the dashboards and seats and stuff in many makes and models of cars made in Detroit. Their headquarters is in Troy, Michigan, which is a suburb of Detroit. So that would work. There have already been demonstrations outside their headquarters, things like that. I don't know if you're aware of anything else on that.
At the moment, no, I am having a meeting with the CFO to have any updates.
Okay.
But yeah, that's as far as I'm concerned, it's pretty much that.
So the CFO might also.
Yeah.
Do folks know what the CFO is? Maybe that's worth telling them about.
Yeah, so the CFO, there are partners down in Mexico, and they're the ones that usually help us plan these delegations, and they very warmly welcome us, and they take us through these communities and through these workers, and they're a group of organizers. So basically they're not a union. I think a lot of the times they get mistaken for a union, but rather than that, they are the ones behind the scenes that go into these maquiladoras and organize the workers and educate them on their rights, and they help them vote in unions. That's their purpose. They're not a union themselves, but they work with the workers so that they can fairly represent themselves.
What does CFO stand for?
Comité Fronterizo de Obreras, o Obreros, which is United
The Workers Border Committee.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And they usually write obreras or obreros, which is they one of the ways in Spanish to be gender neutral is you use the at sign when you use an A or an O, to show gender. So the at sign kind of looks like an A and an O together. So they usually write it that way. In fact, see here.
Wait from here, yeah.
Yeah. Worker power, you see how we got the word worker written. So it's gender neutral.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's what.
Yeah.
So, Comité Fronterizo de Obreras o Obreros. It's a very woman-oriented organization. They certainly are in the organization, but it's women who are typically the really active ones.
Yeah. But really quickly, I do want to talk about our tote bags. So we are having a tote bag fundraiser, and the purpose of these tote bags is to provide funds for the workers that were unfairly laid off. So the creator of this tote bag, actually the one who made the little painting up here in the front is a local artist here in Austin, and her family is from Cahuila, Piedras Negras, which is the maquiladoras that we usually visit to. And the tote bags themselves were made by Fuerza Unida, who's also our partners down in San Antonio. And we've been partners with them for about 3 decades. So they themselves made the tote bags, and then the little bird here painting was made by a local artist. So I'll just leave these.
What kind of bird is that?
It's a colibri. I don't know what that's
hummingbird.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it stitched or painted?
It's I don't precisely remember, but I think they're just like the pictures are just pasted on here.
Oh,
Yes. But you guys can click it around if you want to take a look.
Very pretty. It means workers' rights?
Yes. Or power.
Oh, there. They're special. Very good. It's back there somewhere. It's not scratching my head.
You said Fuerza Unida stitched the bag?
Yes, we did.
Levi's, and then the artist made the,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuerza Unida, I don't know if you want to tell us a little about that. They're the ones that actually stitch the bags.
yes. So I'm a little blurry on their history, but I'll try to remember the best that I can. But they used to work at the Levi's company down in San Antonio, but unfortunately, like, you know, a lot of these cases in Mexico, they were also shut down. After NAFTA came into action, they were shut down because a lot of these companies moved down to Mexico for cheap labor. So these people were laid off, no compensation, no warning, and a lot of families were left without jobs, and there was a lot of repercussions to that. A lot of people couldn't, unfortunately, provide for their families. So these workers, they organized and they tried to protest the unfair maquilas that were being opened down in the border, and they tried to warn other Levi companies in the US, you know, like that this was happening, to beware and to organize, to be prepared for it. So out of that, they formed Fuerza Unida, which is basically another organization that empowers workers as well. But we've been partners with them for about 3 decades in our delegations. That's one of our first stops down in San Antonio.
How long has that cooperative been together?
Are they a cooperative?
They're co-op.
Are they a co-op?
And they, well, the whole thing with Levi's happened around 30 years ago. And I'm not sure if Fuerza Unida formed immediately, but sometime within the last 30. You think so? You think it was?
It was in the 90s, for sure, yes.
So, okay.
So about 3 decades as well.
Yeah, yeah. And they're also one of the vendors at the Women in Fair Trade Festival every year.
And where will you be selling your bags?
Accessible through our Instagram or the website, but really they're here at La Casita, so if anyone's interested, I can just pop down and bring them. We accept cash or Venmo or PayPal. Yeah.
Mine, or were you going to say something? Can I give a little bit of history?
Yeah.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
All right. So the Mexican Revolution happened in 1910. I mean, the second one. So we're going way back here. And there was a lot of social ferment, and labor unions were formed. But the labor unions that were formed between the 19 teens and the 1940s basically fell under the orbit of the what was originally the Revolutionary Party in Mexico, the PRI. Some of you have heard of that, the PRI, which in Spanish literally, I always think the name is funny, the Party for Institutional Revolution. So, you know, just kind of an interesting name. And I know Juanita's family
Yes.
is has been associated with the PRI, right, in the past, in local politics. But as things wore on, the unions that were in the factories and things like that, and the maquiladoras became a little less responsive to the workers, and so they started talking about unions that were either kind of company unions or government unions. And so the Mexican Constitution and the Mexican labor law is some of the best constitutional and labor law that exists in the world for workers. But of course, when things are on paper, they don't always get carried out. They have a constitution that guarantees the minimum wage, and they define what they mean by minimum wage, which is enough for one worker to support a family of 4 people completely, you know, with decent housing, education, food, everything, you know. So what's happened is that part of what's been going on with the CFO that Juanita alluded to is the CFO has been helping workers get organized. And under Mexican law, they have the right to have, elections to choose a different union because all of these factors have unions, but they're just not very active for the workers. So that was what this election that happened with the VU workers was about bringing in a different union. And that's kind of what the focus is on right now. And most of NAFTA, which that's the word we've always used, North American Free Trade Agreement, was approved in '93, went into force in '94, and then was renegotiated about 3 years ago, and just it's called the USMC, right? Yeah, United States, Mexico, Canada Free Trade Agreement, and it is a little bit better regarding labor rights. A little bit better. Do you have any details on it?
I think precisely after this, after USMCA is when a lot of the CFO had a lot of free space to move forward and really organize maquiladoras down in Mexico. So I think ever since then, there's been a lot more organizing and a lot more maquiladoras for sweatshops voting in their own unions, because it allows unions to vote in a union of their choice. And a lot of these workers, after this law was passed, didn't even know that. So that's also the CFO's work that they do. They educate the workers on the law, because unfortunately a lot of these workers don't know. But Howard was mentioning the unions that actually represent the company rather than the workers. And in Mexico, they call them sindicatos charros or sindicatos blancos, which is white unions. So they're a corrupt union that, again, rather than representing the worker, they represent the company. And a lot of the times they actually work directly with the company to suppress the workers, or with local politicians or policemen. So these workers, it's not that they're just organizing or fighting against their company, but they're fighting against these white unions, against local politics, politicians, and even at a state level sometimes, which is very unfortunate. And it's a difficult fight, but it's definitely something that's worth it. And it's very empowering to see these workers do that and, really fight for themselves.
One of the things that the CFO asked us to fund years ago, and they still have a big stock of them in a storage room, and they use them. There's a telephone book size publication, which is the official text of the Mexican labor law. And they actually use that in their organizing. They give it to workers, let them read it, have discussions about it, so they can see, okay, you really do have these rights, don't let them tell you otherwise. Yeah.
It sounds rough. I mean, so you've got unions that are not representing the workers, and despite the fact that there's good labor laws in Mexican law, I mean, that indicates that the government is not inspecting or doing their. So, I mean, it feels pretty hopeless, so how, and then here in the United States, we also have the aspect of certainly NAFTA took advantage, and perhaps even the current trade agreements take some advantage. So again, I'm kind of wondering, where's the point of trying to deflect this in the right direction? That's just my thought.
That is something that our last delegation in May, one of our delegates asked, because they learned so much from this delegation, and like you said, it almost seems hopeless. So one of our delegates did actually ask, how do you guys stay hopeful? What encourages you guys to move forward with this? And I think it's just those little wins that really do push the CFO to keep forward. And I think, especially in the maquilas, and it might sound so small of a win, but a lot of these maquiladora workers don't even have bathrooms. They don't even have proper AC. And I think last delegation, there was a woman who was sharing her story of the maquiladora that she worked at. And she said that one of her coworkers died. She was pregnant. They didn't let her sit. So although it might seem hopeless, I think it's these little wins that really encourage the workers. I think through unionizing, especially at VU manufacturing before they closed down, one of the demands was, as little as it sounds, was to have chairs for pregnant women. And they were able to give that. They asked for AC and they were also able to give that. So I think even though it sounds, to us at least, sounds like it's not that much, but to them, it's a lot. Even something as little as getting AC is a lot, or bathroom breaks, that's a win enough. Yes. Sounds crazy, but.
Bathroom breaks is a big focus.
Yes.
In some of the factories, for instance, they'll say, okay, you get 5 minutes, you get 5 minutes every shift or
Yes.
twice a shift or something like that.
And they get a bathroom per.
And there's one bathroom
Yes.
for the whole factory, which might be
For hundreds of people.
or maybe even 1,000 people. And so you get your 5 minutes and you go and there's a line of 20 people. But you got to be back in 5 minutes. So it sounds like a little thing, bathroom breaks. Oh, come on. But it kind of stands in for the respect that workers are asking for, the basic decency, I think, that they're asking for. And if people can't go to the bathroom all day and they don't dare to, just take off or anything. So you start to have health problems, you start to have kidney problems and things like that. So it's a big, it sounds small, at first, but it's because we can't envision that,
I can remember we took a trip. It wasn't with the delegation, but we were doing something else. So I guess it was about 15 years ago, maybe. And there was a woman there that worked for the CFM. They had 2 young adult, close to adult age children in wheelchairs with spina bifida. And then they had a third child that was more neurologically intact. And the reason why those two is that she was pregnant. She told them that she was pregnant, and yet they were required that she stayed in a place that didn't have ventilation.
She worked with chemicals.
She worked with chemicals. And so she had the first child and then the second child. And finally, I think she left or something. So they had to have, so things like that are just like critical, bathroom breaks and, are critical for your health. Pregnant women, respecting them. Anyone needs to have ventilation, pregnant or otherwise. To be reassigned, that's what she had asked for. They refused it at the time.
Unfortunate. But again, it's also very powerful to see these workers, despite all odds, organizing, and it's very inspiring as well.
Have they gotten the compensation from the equipment?
No, they haven't. They haven't.
CFO would tell us.
Yeah, but no, they haven't. So, So as I guess this case in specific is also a little discouraging because, again, they had an election last September, and they won, in favor of the workers, and they asked for all these demands, and the company, they at first were obliging to a certain extent. They gave them the ACs, they gave them the allowed them to say, but after they agreed to compensate or raise the wages, which they agreed to, they refused to do so. So after the demand, I guess eventually they just rather than obliging, they just shut down the company, no warning whatsoever. And that's it's very unfortunate, but that's what a lot of these workers are dealing with now.
Yeah. What's the average wage in the month?
If I'm remembering correctly, I believe it's 1,000 pesos, which is per week. So that's about $50. And that's on a good week. You know, these companies, especially if they know you're unionizing, or if they get any wind of that, or they suspect you, they use any excuse to give you days off. But really, it's a way of intimidating workers. So a lot of these time workers work 2 days a week, 3 days a week, and they don't even get to make that a lot of the times.
I believe Juanita alluded to it, but one of the things that usually happens on these delegations is there's a time when someone from the CFO gives a presentation. I remember they used to have a big blow up of a pit stub, you know.
La canasta básica.
Yes, the canasta básica, the basic, you know, basket of food, and just showing what it costs per week to just get the basics, you know, for a family of 4, I think is how they usually do it at basics, and then get some of the nice to haves, and by nice to haves I mean fresh fruit and, you know, chicken and stuff, and then all the things that maybe aren't a weekly expense, but you can break them down by week, like school supplies for the kids, because those are a big deal. Utilities, all kinds of other stuff. Your payment on your house or your rent, you know, all that.
And they use that and they compare it to the weekly wages, and it's not enough.
Because a lot of people are shopping down there. They have HEB down there. Okay, so the prices are comparable to the prices here, right? I mean, it's not like they're lower.
They're fairly comparable.
So imagine going to HEB and you're making $50 a week, or 80 or 100 sometimes. I mean, it can vary, but the exchange rate fluctuates. Usually less, the value of the peso goes down.
Right.
But the wages don't adjust for the, you know, for that sort of thing.
Another question on the unions that are trying to form to replace the white unions. Are those local unions, say for a specific factory or specific work location, or, you know, because what crosses my mind is this, I mean, the power in organizing is organizing
Local.
well, many people.
Right.
And if it's just local and there's more people there, then there's less power to the workers because they can be replaced more easily. But if it's a larger group of workers that are working for a specific company, I'm just curious, are the unions larger? Are they?
There is a union called La Liga, which is a larger union, and they represent a lot of these maquilas, so it's not just one. And they work hand in hand with the CFO a lot of the times, but they're a larger union.
Yeah, are they national?
National, okay.
They're national. I'm not asking.
No, I'm not sure actually.
Yeah, I believe it's a fairly established, progressive older union. It's got a lot of, at least in northern Mexico. I don't know.
Yes,
if they're all over the country. One of the issues is that there's a wage differential. So the minimum wage in Mexico is different for each state. You know, it's dictated by the federal government, the Mexican federal government, but it's different based on the economy of each state. So in the northern states, the minimum wage is higher. In the southern states, Chiapas and ones that border, you know, on the Central American countries, it's lower. And so there's internal migration, okay, in Mexico due to economic pressure, and it typically is toward the northern states, the northern Mexican states, where the maquilas are. And so you'll meet a lot of people from, especially Veracruz.
Veracruz and Chiapas.
And Chiapas, yes, and Chiapas. Come there, you know, so there's almost like little neighborhoods, you know, that are Veracruz or Chiapas. So there is that dynamic too. There's the internal economic pressure. economic differential and wage,
Well, just to add to that really quickly, I did speak with a ex VU manufacturing worker, and she mentioned that she knew someone from Chiapas who worked at the factory, and she mentioned to her, well, what do you guys complain about? You guys basically live in luxury. To them, at least, it seemed that was luxury, which is crazy. I can't imagine what the wage in Chiapas must be, but yeah, to them, unfortunately, that's luxury, but how they live.
There are older unions as well that they've worked with in the past, older established unions. The miners union, which is mostly northern Mexico. Monterrey wasn't as a coal mining center. A lot of those areas. The miners union, I think they kind of backed off from the miners union because, let's just say there were gender issues, with how they organized and how they allocated power within the union, and the CFO and the maquiladora workforce, which is. But what percentage would you say? What's the gender breakdown in the maquiladora workforce?
I'm not sure.
We usually are talking to women, but there's definitely men around who also work there too.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure, but I would say it's almost 50-50.
50-50,
Yes.
maybe even a few more women.
Yeah, a few more women.
Yeah, so that those issues are very important. I think Juanita was referring to, there's a lot of sexual harassment, which is used as a management tool, in the maquiladoras. So they kind of, they're really looking for a union that respected, gender issues and was aware of them. I think Ladita is more what they're looking for.
The wage increase, they didn't get it, but how much of an increase was it?
Or at least they were asking for.
I think it was just about $10 extra per week. If they would have moved forward, the salary was to be evaluated on a yearly basis. So depending on inflation or needs, etc., they would ask for more and they would negotiate with the company. So that was to be a yearly thing at least. That was the expectation, but unfortunately they closed down.
Yeah.
But I think that's the goal for a lot of these workers to get higher wages and do a yearly evaluation so that they can, adjust that due to inflation or depending on what the needs, right? Mm-hmm.
At least.
Right, at least.
Yeah. I don't want to turn this too personal, but what's your what brought you to Austin Cerca? Well, other than you needed a job, obviously, we know that. But anything else, or anything you want to let us know about yourself?
Yeah, I lived in Mexico up to the age that I was 10, and then I moved to the U.S. and my family has always been a little more on the conservative side, but I think I was always the rebel, as they would put it. I was always a more progressive and was always a rebellious teenager that would call them out on their stuff, you know, and I think I've just always been down this path of like progressive work, I would say. And when I moved to San Marcos, I heard about Austin Cerca through a union that I was a member of. And a lot of the work aligned with a lot of my beliefs, and I was very interested in that. And especially being Mexican, I always say Mexico's first in my heart, and specifically, my loyalty lies in Mexico. So I was very interested in the work that they do, especially down in Mexico, and it was very inspiring. And you know, aside from the fact that I needed a job, I love the work that we do, and it's something that again aligns with a lot of my beliefs. So I love working at Austin Cerca.
Yeah, she briefly referred to being in San Marcos.
Yes.
What happened 2 days ago?
Oh, I graduated 2 days ago. Texas State University. Yeah, I did. What was your degree? Political science, minor in journalism. Very excited.
What's the next delegation?
Delegation, it's going to be in May for sure. We're still looking to choose the exact weekend, but usually it's about the second or third weekend of May. But the month is already set. And as soon as I do have a meeting with the CFO in the next days to follow, and as soon as that date is out, we do want to make an announcement as well to plan this delegation with a little more time.
That's one of the reasons I'm excited about this session being recorded, is because I know we have you know, Juanita, you wouldn't believe it, but usually when we're all here at the 11 o'clock hour, it's about half of the people are under 35. And so there's a lot of, we're hoping we can do some kind of outreach and recruiting.
Yeah, for sure. I think as soon as we have the date set, I would love to come back and announce it. But yeah, as soon as we have that set.
Yeah. Not to exclude anybody who's here. I'm not saying.
Right.
Typically, those are the people who get motivated to go on these delegations.
One of the nice things, you know, maybe we can invite you to is the Tuesday brunch that they all go to the Madres, and maybe you could, you know, join them.
Yeah, and what is the
Second Sunday.
Which is today.
okay.
And if you can't do it today, maybe one other month, but it's a good way to meet
Yeah.
people more in the age group that would be demographic, you know. But it usually happens 1:30 at Madres. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I can't this Sunday, but I will be there next
Yeah,
Sunday.
yeah, just keep that in mind. You know. Looks like we're almost to the end. Is there any last comments you want to make, or last questions anyone has?
Sure sounds like important work. And thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very important.
Thank you guys for, you know, welcoming me and allowing me to speak here and just have this conversation.